Welcome to the Smart Thinking Podcast. This is my dad, Ted.
Welcome to the Smart Thinking Podcast. I'm your host, Ted Knightsky. The other day, I was with a group of people, and somebody walked up to me and said, Ted, what is the scariest thing you ever did? And without missing a beat or even really thinking about it, I said, graduated from high school. They said, what? I said, graduating from high school. I think that was the scariest thing that ever happened to me. And she said, what do you mean? And I said, well, when I graduated from high school, I had an idea of what I was going to do, but really no idea of what was coming. I had an idea of what I wanted to be, but I had no idea of how I was going to get there. I had an idea of what kind of a life I wanted to have, but I had no idea how I would make it. And I had all these people around me with all of these expectations. And I was at my own graduation party. And I remember weirdly when I was 18 years old in 1989, standing there listening to all of my aunts and uncles and friends talk about how proud they were of me and all the great things that were ahead of me. But I had no idea how I was going to get there. And that was the scariest thing that's ever happened to me. That's what sparked this episode this week of the Smart Thinking Podcasts. I want to think about what gifts we should be giving to people who are graduating, transitioning, or just moving forward in life. So let's get into today's episode. Oh, wait a minute. Before we do that, let's do a couple of quick reminders here of what it means to be a Buffalo leader. The first thing is that we're all leaders because a leader is anyone who has influence over another person, which means that every single day we are walking through our lives and our days, and what are we doing? We're leading by example. We are charging into the storms that we are facing, like the buffalo, and we are accepting all of our circumstances with optimism. The second thing we're doing is we're following. Now remember, leadership and followership, that's yin and yang, two equal and opposing forces. Things we have to do every single day. Yeah, we have to lead, but we also have to follow. We have to follow the mission. We have to be collaborative. We have to care about other people. We have to be resilient. We have to be accountable, and we have to choose to be engaged in the world in which we live in. Because there's nobody who can make choices for us. And as I stood in front of about 160 great kids the other day in Munster, Indiana, I reminded them there's only 3 things we have total control over. Number 1 is our happiness. Number 2 is our mindset. And number 3 is our choices. And leaders are recognizing that every single day of their lives. Okay, now, what else do we do? Well, we lead with empathy, which is what this episode is all about. And we reflect. So every day wondering what it would be like to be the people around us, how did we serve and support the people around us, and what did I do well for others each day and today? Okay, those are our weekly reminders. Now, let's get into this idea of the scariest day of my life, because there's going to be tens of thousands of young men and women and people all over the United States in the next few weeks who are likely going to be experiencing some of the scariest days of their lives. And I just want to set up some reminders for you. The first reminder is this. Please be empathetic when you're talking to a young man, woman, or person who's about to graduate or is graduating or is transitioning, meaning they are moving from a job to another job. They are moving from school to work, whatever they are doing. Be empathetic. My goodness, people, do you remember how exciting, energizing, and anxious you were when you went through these transitions in life? How people were constantly judging everything that you were doing and making weird comments about your chosen profession, or where you were going to school, or what your next steps were. And yes, people didn't outright criticize you, but people did say weird things to you. I did an episode 250 some episodes ago about how one of my neighbors, one of the people I admired most in my life, Mr. Garai, had told me that by becoming a teacher, I was entering an honorable profession. And I remember thinking, I don't know if this is a joke, if you're being mean, or if you're being serious. So I clarified with him, and he meant it. He said there is no more honorable profession in the world than dedicating yourselves and your life to making sure that people are empowered with the knowledge they need to be the best versions of themselves. I have no idea if he said that, but that's what I remember. Anyways, be conscious of how you talk to people in their transitions and as they're graduating. Be conscious of the single fact that we really admire the people around us. So if you're an aunt, uncle, mom, or dad, grandma, grandpa, niece, nephew, uncle, neighbor, whatever role you play in the life of someone else, be empathetic. Because the greatest gift you can give a graduate is to make sure that they understand exactly where they stand with you. And that's what this episode is all about. But before we get into that and the process, we now know the problem. And the problem is young men and women who are graduating or transitioning in their lives, or even older men and women, regardless of your season, When you're transitioning, what we need around us is we need people to do two things for us: provide empathy, and most importantly, predictability. Where do I stand with you? Okay, so let's get into this. I remember when I graduated from high school in 1989. Great music, great times. I mean, I was listening to New Order, U2, Paula Abdul. I mean, I was listening to it all. And I remember being at my graduation party after listening to a speaker. I don't remember what they said. I remember singing in my choir, and I also remember the beach balls that the teachers were grabbing as we were bouncing them around up in the air on a beautiful June day in the city of Port Washington. I remember riding my moped back in my cap and gown and having my mullet flared out beautifully as I drove home. Okay. When I got home, my whole family was there. My grandmothers were there. My aunts and uncles were there. My little cousins were there. And everybody was all excited for Teddy. Teddy, Teddy, Teddy. And my uncles would pull me aside and be like, "So what are you doing next year, Teddy?" And I was going to a junior college, the University of Wisconsin-Washington County, where I was going to begin my collegiate career in theater. Yeah, I was starting out in theater. I wanted to be on the stage, do fun stuff, and live the life. I wanted to go to Second City in Chicago and try to get on Saturday Night Live. None of this is a joke. However, I didn't share that with anyone. I told everyone I think I'm going to go to school for business. I think I told other people that I might go for history. But I remember thinking to myself, I don't know that anyone will be proud of me if I say I'm going for theater. I also remember two really cool things that happened that day. First was my aunt. You see, I've got this really cool Aunt Marcia, and she doesn't remember many of the different ways that she powerfully impacted me in my life. But my Aunt Marcia came up to me, and she brought me aside, and she said, "Teddy, I want to just talk to you for a quick second. Now, I want you to know that no matter what happens to you, you can always come to me. You can always come to my house. You can always stay with me. You can do anything you need. I will always be here for you, because I know that what you're going through is a really, really tough time." And my Aunt Marcia was one of these people, or is one of these people, that she's got this beautiful sense of wanderlust. When she graduated from high school, she didn't go to college. She went to work, and then she would work for a couple of months, save up some money, and then she would quit her job and go off on a road trip. She'd go out west, she'd go out east, she'd go down south, she'd go up north, she'd go all over the place. And as a little boy, I had this really cool aunt, and she would come back from these trips months later, and everybody'd pick on her and joke about, "Oh, Marcia, Marcia, Marcia." But all I thought of was, this lady's pretty awesome. And here I am in the same season of life she was, 15 or 20 years before me, and she's saying to me, "I'm a safe place. You can come to me. And whatever you need, I'll be here for you." I never forgot that. I never forgot how it made me feel. I never forgot how powerful I suddenly felt about my future. Not that I was in control, but more so that I had a soft place to land. Because you know what society was telling me, and what society tells all young men, women, and people, is that when you graduate from high school, you're going to go off to college, you're going to go off to work, you're going to go off to a university, you're going to go off to the military. Whatever you're going to do, you're going to go off and you're going to be successful. You're going to be unbelievable. And no one puts any grace in there for a little bit of failure. There are very high expectations, and society's telling you you've got all of these things to do. And as a result, well, we create a little bit of anxiety and people start to freak out. Every time today I go around a graduate and I find somebody who's moving either from 8th grade to high school into the next stage of their life, or university or college off to their next stage, I always ask them the same question. Are you getting tired of people asking you what you're doing next? And they all, every single one, every single time, they say yes. It's kind of like when people have a broken leg and you ask them, "How'd you break your leg?" You should never ask that question. It's obvious. It's broken. Who cares? How are you feeling? That's what matters. So, back to my story. My Aunt Marcia's standing out on our little back patio in the townhouse that my parents rented at the time, and she had her arm around me, and she was telling me all of these things. And I just remember giving her a little side hug and saying, "Thanks, Marsh." Then I went inside. And then the second coolest thing happened, which also created the most anxiety that I ever felt in my life. You see, a 1970 red Ford Mustang pulled up with two girls in it. My uncles went wild. They're like, "Teddy, there's some girls here. Woo!" And I was like, "Oh no." And I looked out, and it was two girls that I went to high school with, and they were going to start driving from party to party to party. And I went in by my mom and I said, "Can I go?" And my dad came around the corner and he was like, "You bet you can go," because everybody saw the car. So I hopped in the car with the two girls and we went to all of the different parties. And that's when the anxiety kicked in. Because as we would go to the different parties, I would see these classmates of mine who seemed to have their life like perfectly scripted. They had a recipe that they'd almost been handed. I remember going to my friend Chris's house where he was going to go to medical school, and he was going to go to the University of Wisconsin-Madison and study biology. And then from there, he was going to go to medical school, either in Milwaukee or Madison or in Iowa. And then I remember going over to my friend Kevin's house where he was going to go to lacrosse and he was going to study for PT. And I ran into all these people who had these very clear plans that, frankly, at all the parties I had been to, all the parties previously to graduation that I'd been to, nobody talked so clearly about their future. And everywhere I went, I felt this societal pressure and anxiety. Now, the coolest thing that happened was when all of this stuff was done, and when we were all away from our parents and grandparents and the pressures of all of our families, we sat down and we started to talk. We went to a beach just on Lake Michigan here in Port Washington. We started a bonfire and everybody was sitting around talking. And I cannot tell you the rest of what we were doing because this is a rated G episode and I cannot incriminate myself. But anyways, we were sitting around and talking, and suddenly somebody else asked the question, "Are you guys kind of freaking out?" And we all answered, "Yes, yes." And then that's when my friend Kevin said, "My parents think I'm going to be a physical therapist." And I was like, "My parents think I'm going to school for business. I want to be in theater." And then my friend Chris was like, "I don't even like people. I don't want to be a doctor." And that's when it hit all of us. We all need an Aunt Marcia. I needed somebody empathetic, somebody who would reflect upon where I was going and what I was doing. And friends, that's what I want to talk to you next about. I really want you to do some smart thinking about supporting people in these transitions that we're about to go through. I've given examples of the speeches I've given at graduations about charging into the storm. I've talked to you about the gifts you should give kids and the books we should get them. As a matter of fact, there's a really good book called Duke's Storm, which is a phenomenal text to give somebody graduating from high school. I'm not sure if you've heard of it. It's written by Ted Neitzke. It's a really good children's book, but it's a leadership book, and it's a helpful metaphor to recognize that they're heading into their storms. Okay, sorry. I think that was like a little mini commercial I just threw in there at you. Okay, but my whole point is this. The greatest gift we can give to the graduates is empathy and a sense of predictability. And do what my Aunt Marcia did. So let's break that down. First of all, one of the things I think we need to do is we need to really, really try to work hard to understand what is it that we are going through when we transition, either in work or more specifically between grade levels. From 7th grade to 8th grade, transition. But most importantly, 8th to 9th and 12th to life. And one of the things that struck me this week when I was prepping for the podcast is, weirdly, I was looking at a book that was on my desk. The book is called The Secret of You, Poetry About Shadows and Light. It's by Ian Thomas. And I weirdly opened up to where I had it bookmarked. And I want to read to you the poem that I came to, because it really helped me understand and help illustrate this episode. Are you ready? One day you will wake up and your first thought will not be about all of this. That's the whole poem. But friends, it's striking because you know what? Each day, everyone in transition is waking up freaking out. Freaking out because they don't have any predictability. They don't feel like they have any empathy from anybody. They've got a ton of social pressure all around them. All the things that have to happen for you that you have to do in order to be successful. And you're constantly being asked, are you excited? What are you going to do? Do you know what you're doing? Where you're going? And you're answering and the question over and over and over again. And most importantly, we got to stop that. So what do we do? Well, the first thing we need to do is we need to become the person in the lives of others that we can support. And really, friends, it's very simple. What we have to do is we have to push back on the nonstop pressure to achieve something or someone else's vision. And instead, we need to step into the space for the person who's going through the transition and make a few things clear. The first thing we need to do, especially if we're parents in this transitionary piece, is to make things extremely clear, because clarity and candor are kindness, and unspoken expectation can never be met, and a behavior ignored is a behavior reinforced. And those are all the things that frustrate us. So let's get through all of that by creating clear expectations for the graduate or the person in transition. And I'm just going to steal from my Aunt Marcia. The first thing we need to do for the people that we love in their transition is just to take them aside and be empathetic and ask them, do you need anything from me in order to feel successful or to be successful as you transition into this next stage of life? Did you hear the question? Do you need anything from me? Or my favorite question, is there anything I can do different to support you as you begin this journey? Now, if you're sending a kid off to college or university or the military and they're about to leave your house, the one thing they don't need is us constantly freaking out and manifesting onto them our worries, our anxiety, and our fears. This is their life, their journey, and their new chapter. They are not on our train taking a ride with us. They're on their own train, and we step on and off of that train every time we see them. And each time we step into a train car on their journey, what do we want to leave behind? I don't want to leave behind guilt or worry or anxiety. I want to leave behind gifts and predictability and opportunity. So how does that look? Well, it looks like this. It looks like you have to have a crucial conversation with someone that you love in transition. You're not having a crucial conversation in the context of stopping them from doing something that's going to destroy them. You're having a conversation that's crucial, making it a crucial conversation. And the crucial part of it is this. Number one, whatever happens on your journey, know this. Know that you can come home. Know that you can call. Know that I won't be disappointed. Know that I will be supportive of you. Well, let me back up. I will be disappointed if you do something that impacts the rest of your life through bad choices. However, I won't be disappointed if you fail. I won't be disappointed if you are hurt. I won't be disappointed if you're scared. I won't be disappointed if you're anxious. I will only be disappointed if I find out too late in order to support you. I'm not here to help you. I'm here to support you. I'm your coach. I'm your dad. I'm your mom. I'm your aunt. I'm your uncle. I'm your grandma. I'm your grandpa. I'm your neighbor. I'm your godfather. I'm your godmother, whatever role you play. You step into that space and you make sure that they know that they can depend on you. I heard a guy the other day say that the way you talk to your children is the way they hear their own voice. And I just sat there staring at the little video that I had watched. And I thought to myself, there's nothing more powerful than that statement about being a parent. But that is also a very powerful statement to say if you are a mentor or a coach or a colleague or an aunt or uncle, or you're just somebody who loves somebody else that you care about. Because I want you to hear my voice in your head when you're in your transition and you're nervous, anxious, antsy, angry, upset, frustrated, scared, don't know what to do, need somebody just to call. I need you to know that I will be here for you. I think one of the most powerful things you can do to support someone in transition from graduation is to be empathetic, but then also predictable. The predictable part is to lay out those clear expectations and tell them that I expect you to call me, to find me, to contact me when you are 1, 2, 3, or 4. Heck, I don't think you have to wait for a transition in somebody's life. I think you should start doing this with everybody around you to make yourself as predictable as possible. Because if you're predictable to them, then they understand how empathetic you'll be when they come to you in a position where they're vulnerable. The second thing is to do what I call sheet cake moments. These are celebrations of effort, of accomplishment, of coming together. And I believe that every time a group or a person does something that is remarkable, gets them where they need to be, or proves that they can achieve or exceed their goals, that we need to show them that we see that they did that. Now, I think one of the things that you and I do in life is that we work hard for ourselves and we feel good when other people just happen to notice. But sometimes we don't get as far as we need to go. We don't cross the finish line. We fail to achieve our goals. And weirdly, we tend to dismiss the effort that got us as far as we got. And we shouldn't do that. So when you have a graduate or somebody in transition, you need to recognize their effort. No matter if they've got 10 ropes around their neck as they walk through graduation, or if they're just crossing the stage in their robe and cap, if they're stepping into work, if they're stepping into life, if they're stepping into universities, or if they're just simply stepping out of the house for the first time. Stop and recognize everything that they did to get there. Tell them that you saw them work hard. You saw what they overcame. You saw all the different ways in which they found their own personal success. You see, one of the things that goes on in people's heads and lives as they mature and grow older is they don't always know where they stand with the people who they love. And if the people they love don't tell them where they stand, well, it's pretty hard for them to come to you if they're looking for empathy or if they're looking for a predictable way in which to address or solve a problem. And if you're overly predictable because you are not predictable, meaning that nobody knows how you're going to react or respond when we come to you, well, guess whose problem that is? If you don't know the answer, take a second, pause the podcast, and go look in the mirror. The third thing. Tell them you love them. I mean, I know we say that, but really, tell the people in transition in their lives, the people graduating, just stop them. Pull them aside from all the chaos and the noise, and just grab them by the shoulders, look them in the eye, and stop and just say, without saying anything else, I love you. And then give them a hug. I know that sounds crazy, but at the end of the day, that simplicity puts me in a position on the receiving end of that statement, the gesture, and the embrace. It puts me in a position of truly understanding that you understand me and that I can come to you. And that makes you empathetic and predictable. The final thing. Oh yeah, there's something after love. Positive reinforcement. I found myself the other day talking to a group of parents, and I always tell the same joke over and over and over again, which is that we stop positively reinforcing the behavior of children right around the age of 9 or 10 years old. Because suddenly at 9 or 10 years old, you can do everything. You can poop on the toilet, you can zip up your own pants, you can pick out your own clothes, you can brush your own teeth, you can comb your hair, you can make your own food. But you know what? That doesn't mean at 12 years old, suddenly you don't need to be told that you're doing a good job. But for some reason, as soon as we hit middle school, all we do is remind them of all their flaws. And when you go from 12 years old to 18 years old or 18 to 22 years old because you're transitioning from university, college, or your training or military, and no one has told you you've done a good job, well, that's a problem. Nobody has recognized your effort. Nobody has told you they loved you, and nobody set clear expectations. Well, that can really, really burn you in the end. And that can put you in a position where you might not know where you stand. So how do we let you know where you stand? During these transitions, just reinforce all of the different things you saw. And I'm not talking about effort. I'm talking about the other things. I see how kind you are. I see how caring you are. I see how conscientious you've become. I see the way in which you look at your sister. I see the way in which that you provide support for your family. I see the way that you are a good friend to others. I see, and I appreciate. Positive reinforcement is the only way you can move somebody back from anxious, back into antsy, and then into stable. Because they just need to know where they stand. They need to know if what they're doing is making a difference. And everybody likes to know if they're doing a good job. And when it comes to taking on the role of helping and supporting the graduates, the people in transition, the number one thing we can do is to tell them that we saw everything that they did. And then follow it up by making sure they understand the expectations that we have for them as they move forward, that we will be here for them. And finally, supporting them by sharing with them, we saw how hard you worked to get here and we appreciate it. And ending it with the simplest thing ever. I love you. How in the world do you get young men, women, and people to charge into the storms that they're facing if they don't understand the expectations and the rules of the game? If no one ever tells them, I see how hard you work, and if no one ever shares with them all the different ways in which they're doing a good job as they're moving forward on their journey. I mean, they might not be the fastest runner into the storm, but you know what? You're doing it. Here we go. We got this. They might not have ever run into a storm in their life before because they were surrounded with pessimistic people who believe that if we turned away from our problems, they would just simply go away. And the one time they do challenge it, we need to show up with a sheet cake, a little buffalo running into a storm, and cut that thing up, and everybody has a piece, and we all talk about how proud we are of you, and we positively reinforce your effort. That would be the greatest graduation party ever. So here's my question to you. What's the scariest thing that ever happened to you? Because for me, I've been through a lot of things, and those longtime listeners of this podcast know there's some pretty wild things that have happened in my life. But frankly, the scariest parts of my whole life are when I step into a stage of life where I don't know what's coming next. Like you, I've had scary things happen to me, to my health, to my family. I've experienced great loss and great pain. But really, when I really reflected upon it, the scariest thing that can happen to an individual is not knowing what's going to happen to them tomorrow, whose expectations they're not going to meet, and who they can rely on when they do get themselves into a bit of trouble. So this week, what I want you to do is I really want you to think about a couple of things here. Number one, as you support people who graduate, the greatest graduation gift you can give them is a simple note that lays all of these things out. Number one, these are my expectations for you. I'm your uncle. I'm your ride or die. You call me when you need anything. Number two, I saw how hard you worked. And here's 3 specific examples of ways in which I recognize that you got this far. Number 3, I love you. Big capital letters, highlighted, cute little hearts around it. I don't care what you got to do. You got to speak it. You got to say it. You got to write it. And then number 4 is pick out the different ways in which you want to positively reinforce them. I am proud that you did this. I am proud that you did this. I appreciate that you did this. It's a simple card. It doesn't cost anything. And at the end of the day, that will be kept. The $50 savings bond will probably be lost in the trash along with everything else. The weirdo clay pot that you're going to get them or the candle you want them to burn when they're in school so they think about you will be burned and tossed or captured by a very overzealous RA on moving day. I'm just saying, thank you very much, Loyola University of Chicago, for throwing away that candle. And at the end, what will be cherished is the single fact that they have someone in their life who gave them the greatest gift ever, which was empathy and predictability. So let's do some smart thinking. List the people in your life who are going through a graduation or transition that could benefit from using this process. What is the scariest thing you have ever faced, and what did you need in order to get through it? And finally, who are the people that have been in your life who've provided joy, a warm breeze, or sunshine when you were scared? That's it. That's the Smart Thinking Podcast. Hey, as always, thank you so much for listening, and thank you for sharing these episodes to help me help others through their leadership. Also, thank you to the Well Pennies for providing their great music as always, and Golden Bear Studios for allowing us to use their catalog to end and begin each of these episodes with really good quality, optimistic, and upbeat music. Okay. One last strategy for you if you're a mom or a dad, aunt or uncle, grandma, grandpa, friend, whatever. As soon as people go through graduation and their transition, one of the things that happens is all the joy and energy slowly dissipates. Do you remember? I remember graduating from high school. 2 days later, I was just taking a shift at a landscaping company and coming home, and it's like nothing had ever happened. Then when school started and I went off to school, I remember my mom wishing me good luck and telling me that she expected me to do well. And I went to soccer practice and started going to classes, and it was like nothing ever happened. And that, for many people, creates a lot of worry and internal anxiety. That fuels a lot of strange narratives in the heads of people in transition. So let's do something different. Here's my challenge for you. For those that you love and the people in transition, I want you to think of doing something next year. I want you to practice the single greatest way to demonstrate gratitude. Yeah, positive reinforcement and gratitude in the exact same process. I want you to really strongly consider sending a weekly or monthly note to someone that you love who's going through that transition. And I want you to remember this rule. The greatest compliments heard are the ones that are overheard. You know, a lot of people will come up to you and say things like, I'm really proud of you. I saw what you did there. That was really, really cool. But the greatest compliments are those overheard. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, one of the things that's super powerful is when you're at home, and let's say you're a mom and dad, or actually, no, let's do this. Megan and I used to use this strategy all the time to positively reinforce the things we wanted more of with our kids, while at the same time trying to keep them humble and make sure that they understood where they stood. I would stand at the top of the stairs and Megan would go to the bottom of the stairs, and we'd wink at each other and we would shout things to each other about how proud we were of something that we heard about our kids. Now, they would be in their bedrooms or in another place in the house, but I can assure you they're little leapfrogs or PS2s or 8s or whatever those things were, and handhelds would get put down as they stopped whatever they were doing and then eavesdrop on the compliment conversation taking place. I would stand at the top of the stairs and say, Meg, I heard from one of the teachers at school today that Gracie was very polite to her friend Abby and helped her out while she was sick and walked her down to the office. And Meg would say, of course she did. She's always so helpful. And then we would walk our separate ways with a big smile on our face. Later on at dinner, we'd ask Gracie how her day was, and she'd say, oh, I helped Abby to the health room today, blah, 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 blah. Now, what do you do with this? Well, instead of shouting across the room while your kids are there, because they're not going to be there, or they're off doing their things, or your friends or family are in their transitions, I want you to send a weekly note that simply starts out with, Dear whomever, I heard that you, explanation of something amazing that they did. And then at the bottom, I'm proud of you. And remember, I'm your Uncle Ride or Die. Love, Ted. And then send it off. There is nothing better in the world than getting a handwritten card in the mail. And I know that's antiquated, but there's nothing better than to hold it, read it, and keep it. I can assure you that if they're in the dorms, if they're in the barracks, if they're at work, they will take that card, they will tape it up, pin it up, or they will keep it. It'll be in a book, it'll be on a wall, it'll be on a bulletin board. They're not going to lose it. And then when another one comes, well, then they'll just start to create a pile of them. And do you know what they'll do when they start to get anxious or worried? They'll go back to hearing the voice in their head of their mom or dad, their aunt or uncle, their grandma, grandpa, or their best friend, when they say to them, listen, I'm really proud of you. I can't believe how hard you worked to get here. And I love you.
Oh, it's me, everybody, and you. Alone on the other side of the room. But you seem like the only one there, just watching the world unaware. And I hope you notice me. I hope you notice me. But you seem like the only one there, just watching the world unaware. And I hope you notice me. I hope you notice me. But you seem like the only one there, just waiting for someone to care. And I hope you notice me.